Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into Sin's Workshop. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. So, today we are going to be reviewing Make Me a Monster by Kalynn Bayron. We all know I am a huge fan of Bayron at this point. I really am. I think they are incredible. I think my favorite book by them is still You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight. I think that is still my favorite novel. This one though, that is a pretty close second. First of all, I was sucked in just by the dedication alone, because the dedication was 2 quotes. One from Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and the other one was from The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. And I absolutely love Mary Shelley. There are very few books that I have reread. Dracula, I've read it 3 times. Dorian Gray, I've read it twice. Shelley, I've read 3 times. Wuthering Heights, I've read twice. Yeah, Shelley is great. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I wrote a whole paper on Mary Shelley Frankenstein for my Literature of the Gothic class. So that tells you how much I absolutely love. I was very proud of that paper. I got an A. A-, but still. I got an A, and that's all that matters. It was a good paper. In any case, this book, once again, huge thank you to the publisher for sending me an ARC of the book. I so appreciate it, and I absolutely loved it and devoured it, could not put it down. It follows, Mika, right? So her family works, and it's funny, I'm reading another book, kind of the same thing. So, her family works at a, not a morgue, funeral home, you know, where they prep all the bodies and stuff for funerals and wakes. And she, you know, helps out, she does the makeup. Well, turns out her father and her can bring back the dead. It's like it's alive. I love the atmosphere. I absolutely think the atmosphere is one of the best things about the book, because it has that kind of rising tension. It reminded me a lot of Halloween, you know, with Michael Myers. That kind of rising tension where there's something unsettling going on, but you can't quite pinpoint it. But you know that person there is a bad guy. But you don't know when they're going to attack and what's going to happen. That was the atmosphere that was rising in this novel. That was the tension that was rising in this novel. And I really, really liked the tension that was rising in the novel. Spoiler alert, her boyfriend does die early on in the book. And yes, he does come back to life. No, he's not a zombie. He's just the undead. It's Frankenstein. He's Frankenstein's monster. Sorry. Frankenstein's the doctor. I know better. But he's the monster. Turns out someone else she didn't know of is the monster. But I saw that one coming. I was just like, with that reveal, I'm like, I know who else is dead in this picture. And I was right. But it's connected to Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. The monster did exist. They are descendants of the doctor who made the monster. The monster's still very much alive and very much pissed. It was and I'm sorry for the spoilers, but it was such a great plot reveal, you know? Because it had that rising tension and it had a lot of twists and turns. And I think it really did have really good characterization as well. I think Bayron does a really good job at pacing, you know? Pacing and rising the tension and making sure that the characters stand out and are alongside that rising tension. You know, they feel it in their bones, these characters. And you can tell that they feel it, you know, in their internal monologue. Barron does a really good job of setting that pacing, and she does a really good job of like luring you in, like you're just sucked in because of that tone of the story and the atmosphere that they're building. Like I said, it very much reminded me of Halloween, the original, with that rising tension. I was like sucked in. You're just like addicted, like when's gonna happen, what's gonna happen, what's gonna happen, when is the bomb gonna drop, what's gonna happen. So it was really, really interesting to see the story unfold and just kind of be along for the ride and like lose myself in reading the story. It was very well done, very well executed. I think it's a great Halloween read. It really is a very good spooky season read. But it's fun, it's fun to read spooky things. And if you're a fan of Frankenstein, and there are a lot of allusions to Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven, which is why I understand why she used that quote in the beginning of the book. There are ravens, and if you think about it, ravens do play a lot, they play a strong role in a lot of mythologies, a lot of folk tales, easiest one thinking, is Norse mythology with ravens, but they do have special places in different cultures as well. So the raven itself is very prominent. Edgar Allan Poe-esque themes are brought to life as well. And Mika has to learn to rectify with death. Like, she's comfortable with death, obviously. She works, at the funeral home with her family. She does the makeup and everything. Like, she's perfectly okay with death. But when people close to her die, that's where she has to that's where she kind of cuts off. And she realizes, like, wow, maybe I'm not as okay with death as I thought I was. So now she has to kind of learn how to grieve. And she has to learn to deal with a lot of trauma she didn't realize she had because everyone's been lying to her. She's been made to think like she's a little crazy and a little unhinged, but it turns out she's not. So she has to learn to rectify a lot of different emotions throughout this entire journey. Deal with grief and family secrets and trauma, hidden trauma. And it's really just wonderful, how the story unfolds and how it develops and how it just sucks you in from the very beginning. So, and I like that, yes, they brought back to life, but they didn't go that zombie route. They just went the whole Frankenstein route instead. And I thought that was really interesting as well. So in a way, it is kind of like a more modern Prometheus. But it's a contemporary. It's a contemporary horror. I can't really call it a retelling on Frankenstein, although you could say it was, because it has so many similarities and it does draw a lot of inspiration. Again, her character is descendant of the doctor who did make the monster that was the basis for Mary Shelley's story. And so it's so interesting how that just all comes about and is revealed. And I'm like, this is absolutely brilliant, and I loved it. So yeah, in any case, thank you all for tuning in. If you're looking for something spooky to read, I definitely recommend Make Me a Monster. On that note, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with all your book loving friends. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, happy reading.